One of the places that I see a lot of plans falling short is they don't plan for one thing. They don't plan for contingencies. Murphy's Law says that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Another saying that we used to have is that no plan survives first contact. You can have the best laid plan, the most perfect plan, but if something goes wrong, you have to fall on a contingency. And if you haven't planned for that, then what you've done is added stress to an already stressful environment. And if you plan for that contingency, however, you've already planned for it, you've rehearsed it, you've gone through it at least in your head and done your rehearsals for it, and you'll be more prepared when something goes wrong rather than be completely stressed out. So one of the systems that we used in the special operations community is called PACE, Primary, Alternate, Contingency, Emergency. It's an acronym, PACE. And within that PACE plan, you have several different plans that kind of work together. Of course, your primary plan in the context of preparedness and in the context of this film for bugging out is your primary plan should be to bug in. That should be everybody's primary plan. You have all of your resources at your current location where you live. You don't have to go anywhere. There's not any movement involved. It's just a matter of you can stay where you're at for as long as you possibly can. So that should be your primary plan. There's no reason to grab a bag and head off into the wilderness if you don't have to. But that can't be your only plan, because if that's your only plan, then if whatever it is that happens that makes something unsafe for you and your family happens at that location, if you haven't planned for an alternate place to go or an alternate bugging location and don't have a route plan, then you're going to be really behind if something happens that actually pushes you out of there. So just saying that I'm just going to bug in, that's an absence of a plan, right? You're already doing that. You already live at that place. So as long as nothing happens, of course you're not going to leave. Nobody's going to do that. So having one plan is just not enough, because if you're on the X, so to speak, and whatever happens makes it unsafe for you and your family, why wouldn't you move them somewhere where they can be safe? And to do that, you have to have more than just I'm gonna die here in a pile of brass, defending all my mason jars and everything I've got in the pantry. Like that's the absence of a plan. But your primary plan should be to bug in where you're at. That's where your resources are. An example alternate plan would be that, I have this place, I have my primary bug-in location, but I also have an alternate bug-in location that's further away, so that if something happens here that makes it unsafe for me and my family and I need to move, I have a stocked and pre-designated bug-in location, an alternate bug-in location somewhere a safe distance away. That could be 50, that could be 100, that could be 200 miles away. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. You could have several alternate bug-in locations further and further away. So if depending on where the X is, so to speak, the incident that you're trying to get away from, you may need to travel further and further to get there. So having a number of alternate bug-in locations is a good idea. Now, that doesn't mean that your alternate bug-in location is some off-grid cabin in the woods. That could be a friend's house or family's house, somewhere that you're going to go that gets your family a safe distance away from whatever pushed you out of your primary residence. That's what an alternate bug-in location is. So an alternate plan would be that you're going to bug out, but you're going to go to an alternate bug-in location to be. And of course, you don't have to go on foot. We always default to the bug-out bag and the leather personnel carrier, which is what we used to call our boots. You don't have to do that. You may be able to take a vehicle. That may not be a vehicle like a car or a truck. It could be a boat, it could be a canoe, it could be a number of things that makes your mobility and your ability to get from point A to B that much easier. So keep that in mind and develop that when you're developing your plan. So primary plan is bug in as long as possible. Alternate plan is to bug out, but you're going to an alternate pre-designated alternate bug-in location, and you're going by vehicle if you can. An example contingency to that would be, I need to bug out, I'm still going to that alternate bug-in location, but for some reason I can't use a vehicle. And that could be a number of different reasons why you couldn't use a vehicle. The roads just may be impassable, the vehicle could be in disrepair, you could run out of fuel, a lot of things can happen. So you need to have a plan for walking to your alternate bug-in location. So that's an example contingency plan. A good example of an emergency plan, and this, your emergency plan is kind of that last ditch, worst case kind of thing. An emergency plan, which is what I see as a lot of people's primary plan, Your emergency plan would be, you don't have an alternate bug-in location to go. You don't have use of a vehicle, but you have to bug out on foot. So that is what you see kind of in the industry. If I have this bug out bag, it was sitting in the corner of my house, and something happened, I'm grabbing it and I'm disappearing into the forest, and I'm going to live in the wilderness for as long as possible. I say that that's the worst case, and that it should be several plans down. A lot of bad things had to go wrong before you got to that, because it's just not that great of a plan. To think that you're going to be able to sustain yourself in the wilderness for an extended period of time with nothing but what's on your back is definitely the worst possible case I can think of, especially if you have a family with you. It's just exposure to the elements, having to start everything from scratch with very little resources. It's not a really plausible plan. So it should be way down the list, but it is something that you need to plan for.